over here. We're using this excellent book from Rabbi Benjamin Frost over here. And we're speaking all about within regards to different laws within regards to kashrut. What is kosher, what is not, which animals are, which are not. Now we're talking about biblically prohibited combinations of it, i.e. the most popular one that we will know of at the moment, which is forbidden, is basar b'chalav, which can be in different forms. Could be midoraita, could be midorabanan. It depends how it's cooked, how it's prepared, so on and so forth. So that's the first thing we're talking about, the combination of meat and milk together, popularly known as basar b'chalav, basar being meat, chalav being milky. Although both meat and milk of kosher animals is permitted, obviously naturally, separately, a cooked combination of meat and milk is biblically prohibited. Now, it depends how you cook it also. One may not even derive benefits from such a combination. This stated. The details of this halacha, obviously, we're going to learn about in chapter 4. So that's the first combination which is biblically prohibited. Now, the next thing is kilayim, something known as kilayim. These are different species growing together. One may not plant vegetables or grains near one another. Obviously, this is called kilei zera'im over here. One also may not plant any vegetable or grain near a grapevine. This is called kilei hakerem also. There's two distinctions between the two things over here. The former is forbidden only in the land of Israel and does not cause a produce to become prohibited. The latter applies in any country and causes a produce to become prohibited, to be eaten, or even to have any benefit derived thereof. Thus, if you're outside the land of Israel, only kilei kerem presents an actual kashrut concern over here. Gives once again the practical applications about this. Now, rabbinic prohibitions we're learning about over here. I'm just doing this video from a bagel shop over here. We noted above that some rabbinic prohibitions are based upon Torah laws. Also, that was a second category we mentioned about in the previous video over here. These can be, obviously, there are three categories were once again. A, some are rabbinic extensions of actual Torah prohibitions. B, some are rabbinic prohibition of foods based upon the concern that one may transgress some other Torah prohibition. A third category contains prohibitions that have no direct connection to Torah laws, but were instituted to protect the spiritual welfare of the Jewish people over here. Now, foods forbidden as an extension to Torah prohibitions. What is it, friends? Over here. The great rabbis, they extend the Torah prohibition on many foods to include foods not covered by the Torah law in of itself. So what is it? Chazal, the great rabbis, they extended the Torah prohibition on many foods to include foods not covered by the Torah. For example, there's a prohibition of basar b'chalav, includes only meat and milk of something called the behema tohara, kosher domesticated animal over here. Chazal extends the prohibition over here to include meat and milk also from a chaya, a non-domesticated animal, deer, and from fowl over here. So there's an extension there. Once again, Chazal, number 2, B. Chazal broadened the prohibition of gidan asher to include parts of the nerves and fats surrounding it that are not included in the Torah prohibition, so they've extended it a bit. C. The Torah prohibition of kilei kerem applies only to produce of the land of Israel. However, the great rabbis, they extend the prohibition to other lands also over here. So there's extensions over here on the things that have been already forbidden also, which we have learned about. Now the next category is foods prohibited lest one transgress a Torah prohibition. Okay. One may not eat any food if the likelihood exists that he may thereby come to transgress a Torah prohibition. If, however, let's say the likelihood is not going to be apparent or seems very far-fetched, the food may be permitted according to Torah law. The great rabbis prohibited certain foods out of concern that eating them may cause an individual, even in, let's say, rare instance, to violate a Torah law. Thus, while Torah law does not forbid that food, rabbinic law does. What's examples? Chalav akum over here. Milk by a non-Jew without Jewish supervision. Well, like we spoke about yesterday. Chazal, why did they prohibit it? Over here, they were concerned that the non-Jew may have mixed non-kosher milk, let's say, i.e. milk from a non-kosher animal, into the milk. This issue obviously will be discussed later in chapter number 12. Then there was givinat akum, also cheese produced by a non-Jew. The rabbis prohibit this because if it's made by non-Jews, it may have produced with non-kosher rennet. That is the issue over here, which is a problem. The subject, obviously, which we can learn about in chapter number 13 itself. And then the third prohibition over here will be yain nesech, wine touched by a non-Jew. Even to derive benefit from it is a problem. The wine of a Jew, if it was touched and moved, it's a problem over here. I think we very much see this in Yoredeah in chapter 124. What does it say? The Chazal were concerned that the non-Jew may have poured some of the wine as an offering to his avodah zarah, idolatry. These halachot are complex and of importance to anyone who has non-Jewish cleaning help. They are discussed in chapter 16 over here. The foods prohibited by rabbinic law, independent of any direct Torah basis. Okay, certain foods were prohibited because the rabbis, let's say, obviously the spiritual guardians of Am Yisrael, Klal Yisrael in itself, felt that although these foods are essentially kosher, it might be harmful for the spiritual purity of Jewish people. What's the examples of it? Bishulakum, that's what we spoke about yesterday. Foods cooked by a non-Jew. One may not eat food cooked by a non-Jew. Chazal were concerned that this may, let's say, bring an inappropriately close personal relationship between the Jewish person and the non-Jewish person over here in those cases over here. Obviously, this can be discussed in chapter 11, we're going to learn. The next thing is pat akum over here. Bread baked by a non-Jew. Chazal prohibited eating bread baked by a non-Jew. Why is this? Because over here, that bread may bring about a close relationship between, let's say, the two people also, which obviously we learn about in chapter number 10. Then there's stam yena, wine produced by a non-Jew. One may not drink wine of a non-Jew, even if the wine was not poured to avodah zarah, let's say for idolatry. This prohibition is also, let's say, based upon the concern that drinking this wine may facilitate a personal relationship between Jews and non-Jews. Then there's the issue of sakana here. What's sakana, friends? We know it's called dangerous. Certain foods were prohibited by Chazal out of a concern for one's safety. Let's say Chazal were more stringent regarding a sakana, a danger, than a prohibition. Also, I think this is the Hebrew terminology for this is chamira, sakanta, me'isura over here. A prohibition based upon danger. I think very much we learn about this in Masechet Chulin on Daf Yud, page number 10 over here, respectively. Also, among these prohibitions is that of eating fish with meat. This is something that is totally forbidden. Very much in this category. Okay. Now we're going to summarize section number 1 before we start number 2 of it. Prohibited foods, once again, is into 2 separate categories over here. Primary prohibitions, such as obviously non-kosher animals, as we said before, animal, fowl, fish, nevela, treifa, sheretz, blood, chaylev, gida, nasher, tevel, ola, and chadash. These are the yain nesech. Please watch over the previous video. Non-prohibited combinations such as basar v'chalav, obviously, and klei hakerem also. Then there's another category which we've spoken about: foods prohibited by rabbinic injunction. Obviously, in 2 categories. Once again, such as rabbinic extensions to the prohibition of basar v'chalav, gida nasher, kilayim yain nesech, and other chalav akum and gvinat akum. And then there's a category of those not based on a Torah verse, such as bishul and patakum, obviously stam yainim, and also foods considered dangerous by Chazal. Friends, we are in a new section over here now, the prohibition of eating non-kosher food over here. Let's learn about it. Okay. We know according to Torah law, one who eats non-kosher food is liable for punishment or sacrificial atonement only if the following conditions are met. So you've got to, in order to get punished, you need certain criteria to be over in order to be more severe, let's just say, and punishable. The first thing is to have a specific required amount. They call this a shi'ur. However, the Torah does not subject one to physical punishment and requires no sacrificial atonement if one eats less than a kazayit. Let's say a kazayit is known as an olive or half egg's volume. Obviously somewhat more than 1 fluid ounce, or the prohibited food or drinks less than something called the revi'it also, which is more than 3 fluid ounces over here. Then we talk about the time span of eating over here. What is that going to be over here, friend? The Torah inflicts no punishment and requires no let's say, sacrificial atonement unless one eats a prohibited food within a span of time over here. That constitutes one act of eating, let's just say in itself. There's a tradition from a Sinaitic tradition. They find this to be the amount of time necessary to eat a wheat bread that has a volume of 3 or 4 eggs. That's a time span over here. As we call it, Kedei Achilat Pras over here. Obviously, the rabbinic authorities assume this to be approximately 4 minutes. Similarly, drinking a revi'it must be completed in a similar time span of the time it will take to drink a revi'it also. Over here. One who does not conclude eating or drinking within the prescribed time is not liable for punishment. And over here, he needs no sacrificial atonement, even though over here he violated the Torah law. So, if it's done in that your time, that specific point in time, it will be more severe over here. Now, the manner of eating is also crucial over here. Any action prohibited in Torah is prohibited only when the action over here is performed in its normal manner. Any action performed in an unnatural or unusual manner has no halachic validity, he says over here. So if one eats a prohibited food in not the derech to do it, not the way to do it, in an unnatural manner, he is not transgressed a Torah law. So say for example, you're swallowing hot, scalding food, very, very hot food over here. That is not considered normal over here. Also, authorities disagree whether or not eating raw meat constitutes a natural eating act over here. Maybe if you've eaten something forbidden, but it's raw, that doesn't fall in the category. Eating foods into, let's say, repugnant matter has been added, causing it to become inedible, is not considered eating over here. That's another thing. Let's say if it's gluttonous eating, is not natural act of eating also over there. Then food in a wrapping. Eating foods that are wrapped in non-food wrapping is not considered an act of eating also. Which is interesting enough also. Okay. Now we're talking about biblically, he talks about non-kosher medicines also, which is one who's sick or bedridden or suffering from headaches over here, or fever, or young child may swallow a non-kosher pill or chew a bitter-tasting tablet or swallow a bitter-tasting liquid if there's no kosher alternative available. Obviously, one has got to consult a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi, about it. One who must ingest a pill that's covered with non-kosher tasty coating may wrap the pill in a thin layer of tissue paper and swallow it with a mouthful of water. So there's a get-out clause in order to do that, to avoid the taste of it. And one can purchase, he says in it, vegetable-based capsules and transfer the contents of the gelatin capsules to them. That's another way out. Now we're talking here about biblically forbidden but not punishable transgression of it. Okay, so obviously if one eats non-kosher foods, he's liable for punishment only if obviously all those requirements had been met. He may have transgressed Torah prohibition even when those conditions are not met. Okay, there's a concept of chetzi share, half less than required amount also, which we learn about. Although, according to Torah law, we know that one is liable for punishment only if he eats a required amount with a specific time span. Even one who eats a minute amount of non-kosher food has transgressed a non-punishable Torah prohibition of it. Similarly, one who does not conclude eating the non-kosher food with the prescribed time has violated a non-punishable Torah prohibition. And there's tam ki ikar also, the taste is like the essence also. There's a concept of tam ki ikar d'oraita also, that is a rabbinic prohibition also over here. Okay, so what's talking about? One who does not partake of the actual non-kosher food but eats a food into which a noticeable non-kosher taste is absorbed transgresses a non-punishable Torah prohibition over here. So like the tastes went inside the food itself, a non-kosher entity. Whenever sufficient non-kosher taste is absorbed into permitted food to make the taste noticeable, the permitted food assumes the prohibition characteristics of non-kosher food, obviously known as tam ki ikar over here. So just to give a short summary, and then we're going to start next chapter next time round. One who eats non-kosher food is liable for punishment only under conditions. Eats kazayit, or drinks a revi'it. Eats amounts within the time span of 4 minutes, or drinks within the time span of drinking a revi'it. He eats non-kosher food in a natural manner. Also, that's what we talked about. Those are the three things. So we're going to leave it over here today. Wish you all well. We're going to start up in chapter number 2 in the next session of it.